How would you like to end your child's temper tantrums? If you'd like that, keep watching for 5 quick tips on how to stop your child's meltdowns. Hey, thanks for watching. I am Raya Conley with the Conley Clan, where we talk about tips, tricks, and give you a glimpse into the life of what it's like raising 13 children through birth, marriage, foster care, and adoption. We'll be right back. So to give you guys a little bit of a background, Sean has 2 birth children, I have 1 birth child, and then we have 10 children that we have either adopted already or are going to be adopting. And so we do have 13 children. 4 of those children have a lot of behaviors. And so we have been through a lot of training and a lot of therapy with the kids to teach us techniques on how to help with behaviors. Tip number 1 is anticipate it and then offer an alternative. So what I mean by this is, if you can watch before your child throws a temper tantrum, a lot of times they'll give you cues. Our 2-year-old, and I'm going to use her as an example through this because she is the one that we've worked the most with on her temper tantrums. So if I watch her close, I can tell that right before she throws a temper tantrum, she does a couple different things. First, I can tell by her facial expression and the look that she gives. And second, she will usually kind of go like this with her body, or she'll completely lay herself on the floor or lay on the couch, and that is when I know it's coming. If I can anticipate it, then I can offer her an alternative or an option. That way she does not throw the temper tantrum. So for instance, if I can see that she is not liking what we're having for breakfast, before she throws a temper tantrum, I can offer her an alternative. Like, oh, I see that you might not want cereal, how about toast instead? And by offering her that alternative, I can then a lot of times stop a temper tantrum from happening. Tip number 2 is give warnings. Now, we give warnings only in the beginning. So a lot of times if you are just starting this, or if we have a foster child come into the house and they are new, then we will give them a warning on what's coming, so that way they can practice and have a chance to not have that consequence. So we will say something like, oh, I see you're throwing a temper tantrum, we're going to take you to your room if you don't stop. And so we will offer a warning, and then if the child doesn't stop, we do follow through, but that gives them the option to stop and not get the consequence for throwing the temper tantrum. By doing this, you're giving them the option of understanding kind of what happens, what comes first and what comes next. And then later on down the road, we actually do take the warnings away once they're familiar with our rules and how we do things in the house. We will take the warning away. Now, I was told by a child psychologist one time, she said, if you were driving down the road and you knew that if you sped, you were only going to get a warning the first time you did it, would you do it? And I said, of course I would. And she said, kids are the same way. If they know they're going to get a warning, then they will a lot of times do the behavior until they get the warning, and then they'll stop. So that is why we take that warning away. We want them to know first what's coming, and then later on we will just automatically give them the consequence. That way they know then that they need to stop the first time you ask. Tip number 3 is be consistent. This, I think, is one of the most important tips on this list because consistency really is key. If a child knows what is coming every single time and they know that you're going to do it every single time, then it is more incentive for them to stop. So be consistent. We take our 2-year-old to her room every single time she has a temper tantrum. We have been doing that for the entire year that she has been with us. And so she knows that what's going to happen if she throws a temper tantrum is that we're going to pick her up, take her to her room, and put up her gate so that way she stays there. And what has happened is we have gone from 40 temper tantrums in a day, so like on a weekend day, Saturday or Sunday, where we're home all day, she would have about 40 temper tantrums at first. And now we are down to about 3 or 4 temper tantrums a day. And I really believe that the consistency of taking her to her room every single time and letting her have that temper tantrum has really paid off for us. And I think that is why we have had such a drastic difference in the amount of temper tantrums that she throws now. So I do think that consistency really is super important when you are giving consequences. Tip number 4, ignoring. I feel like this is almost as important as consistency because whatever you give a child attention for is what they're going to want to do more of. And so by ignoring a child's negative behavior, you're not giving them any attention for that. Therefore, they are going to want to not do that behavior because they're not getting attention for it. So for instance, we will take our 2-year-old to her room to have her temper tantrum. We put up the gate, and then anything she does in that room, we know she's safe, and we just let her have the temper tantrum. We ignore any other behavior. So sometimes she'll kick her door, sometimes she'll throw things, she will scream, and so we ignore all of those behaviors, and then we don't give her any attention until she has calmed down. What this does, I feel like, is it allows her to have a safe space to have her temper tantrum where we don't have to worry about her, but it also is not giving her any attention for the temper tantrum that she's throwing, so we are ignoring her. A tip I was given one time was that any time you give a child your attention for their negative behavior, that is where they're going to start the next time. So for instance, if we were to ignore the behavior but then give her attention by saying, no, stop that, if she starts kicking the door, then next time she's probably going to start there because that is what got her the attention the last time. So if you're going to choose to ignore, just make sure you ignore the whole temper tantrum. We have had kids that have banged on windows and that have kicked next to our glass cabinet, and they're trying to get your attention and they're trying to get you to say something to them because they cannot stand being ignored. But we just continue to ignore them regardless of what they do, and then we give them the attention after they finally stop. Tip number 5 is praise and positive attention. So as we were talking about in the last tip, ignoring, here is where you want to give them attention for doing really good things. So you give them attention and praise for calming themselves down and stopping. You want to give them positive praise and attention for any behavior that you see that they are doing that you really like, because kids thrive on attention and they thrive off of positive praise. And so anytime you do that, they are going to want to do more of that behavior. So if you ignore the bad behavior, they won't want to do it because they're not getting attention. And if you praise the positive behaviors, then they're going to want to do more of that because they're getting attention for it. Now, it's not always this simple. We have had kids in our home that have had ODD and DMDD, and we have not worked with it yet, but kids with RAD. And this does not always stop the behaviors, but this is always a great foundation to start with to see if this works, and if it doesn't, and they happen to have something like ODD, that is when you have to go out and get with a therapist, get with a behavioral interventionist, and work with them to then build on that foundation. But these steps are really a good foundation to start with. I will do another video about ODD and DMDD and other things that we have worked with in the past, but we'll do that video at another time. Using resets can be really helpful for behavioral interruption. Let me tell you what I mean. So we have used this with kids between the ages of 5 and 9. I've never tried it on the older kids. I do know it works for this age group. And what we do is if they're starting to have a fit, or if they're fixated on something else, we will ask them to name 5 things in the room that are a color or a shape. And so we might say, hey, can you name 5 blue things in this room right now? And they will start naming them. And what that does is it kind of resets their brain to focus on something else. So they'll name the 5 things, and by the time they're done, they have then moved on from whatever it was they were fixated on or throwing a fit about. And this has really helped us, guys, and we've used it and it has worked, and I could not believe that the kids actually didn't realize what we were doing, but they didn't, and it worked for us, and it really has been beneficial. Children have behaviors because they just don't have the words to tell you what they're feeling. So instead of using words that they don't have, they show it through their actions, which is why kids have behaviors. So as a parent, you really have to investigate to figure out what is happening and why your child is having those behaviors that they don't have words for. Now, I will tell you that a lot of times it feels like a punishment for the parents. It feels like your kids are trying to punish you. Now, maybe that's true for some of the older kids, but for the younger kids, they really aren't. It really is just a matter that they can't express in words how they feel or what they're thinking or what's triggering them, and sometimes they might not even know themselves. And so really, if your child has behaviors, it's probably because something is going on with them that they just can't say in words. So investigate that and see if you guys can find out what that trigger is. But I'm curious to know, have any of you guys felt like your kids are trying to punish you with their behaviors? Comment below and let me know. Thanks for watching, guys. If you haven't subscribed, make sure to subscribe to get more tips like this and get a glimpse into the life of raising 13 kids, 10, 12, and under. If you haven't clicked on the notification bell, make sure to click that bell to catch every video we put out. And if you like this video, hit that like button. Thanks, guys. Bye.